In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up your Industrial Edge management system. For this, we'll first need to set up hub access. If you don't already have a hub account, I'll show you quickly how you'd go about this. Then we'll download the ISO, allowing us to create the virtual machine for the Industrial Edge management system. We'll set this one up and then we'll onboard it onto the Industrial Edge hub. Okay, so if you don't already have a Siemens hub account, then probably the first stage would be to speak to a Siemens person, because when you go to Siemens Digital Exchange, so dex.siemens.com, and then you go to Industrial Edge Marketplace, manufacturing and process industries, you have this option here to start for free, and this takes you to the Industrial Edge Hub Access product. So this is what you need to get access to the hub, but it will require an access code, and this can be acquired from your Siemens contact. When you have the access code, you add this to a card, then you will have two purchase methods. You can either pay by credit card or on account with a PO. Either way, it's a £0 purchase. Once you run it, another thing to get is the data service. That's another £0 purchase. And again, you will need an access code. What data service is, it's basically a database, a Siemens database that sits on Industrial Edge. Once you have these two things sorted, you will receive an email allowing you, basically giving you access to the Industrial Edge hub, and the same details you use to access this website here with login or sign up, you will be able to use to access the Industrial Edge hub using the Siemens ID. So in your email, you will have link to Industrial Edge hub. It will take you to this login page, and here you will be able to log in with your username and password. On this next screen, you will have to confirm the export restrictions. And then you are presented with your Industrial Edge hub. So here you can find documentation, the software to download, or the licenses you have, etc, etc. If you find this video boring, you can just go here to documents, find yourself the getting started, and follow this. It will show you how to set up the Industrial Edge management system. Or if you'd rather follow me, then you can head to download software. This is where you are able to find the ISO and download it from. So we hit download. Now the ISO is 2 gig, so depending on your internet connection, it might take a moment. I'm gonna grab myself a coffee. Okay, so that's finished now. I need to go to my virtualization software. I will be using VMWare Workstation. You can be using VirtualBox is fine. You could be using ESXi. So here I need to create myself a new virtual machine. Then I can provide the ISO. So this is what we just downloaded a moment ago. That's fine. What is it? It's Linux. It's based on, where is it? Debian 10. Next, what's the name of the virtual machine? So yeah, I'm gonna call my IEM v14. Put it wherever it makes more sense for you. Next, now how much space do you need? So if you go through the document that I mentioned, you need you need 2 disks. Each of these needs to be at least 50 gig, okay? So I'm gonna create one that's 50 gig, and the second one you need to add later. So finish this. Then you need to edit the virtual machine settings. Give it at least 16 gig of RAM. If you give it 8, you might run into problems. I've seen it happen before. For course, it doesn't really matter if it's 1.4 or 4.1. Then hard disk, like I told you, you need 2, so we need to add another hard drive. Hard disk, yeah, that's fine. And another one that is 50 gig. Good, okay. So 16 gig of memory, 4 CPUs, 2 times 50 gig. you might want to double check this in the documentation to make sure it hasn't changed. Okay, the rest should be fine. In terms of the network adapter, this should be bridged to one of your host's networks. So I have this one called docking station. I will be bridging with this. If you leave it as not, it's going to onboard fine onto your hub, but then when you have your industrial edge device, it will not be able to hit the IM if it is behind NAT. So this is why it needs to be bridged. And one more thing, if you go to options and advanced, make sure you take a UEFI. That's very important, otherwise again it will not work. So that's good. We can fire up our virtual machine. So here you're presented with a bit of a GUI. We go to install system. We need to make sure it's installed on SDA. So just leave it as default, don't change it, and install selected image. Okay, so installation is completed now. We need to reboot it as the message says. Do not remove the installation media until the reboot finishes. Okay, so the reboot finished. Now we need to do a bit of configuration. So yeah, English is fine. Keyboard layout. Oh, I hate looking for it. Where is it? GB is mine. Okay, so here you can change the settings of your network interface. By default, this is set to DHCP, so if you have a DHCP server, then happy days. If you want to change it, you can change it to static and just give it the IP address. Okay, I'm happy with this. Do you want to configure a proxy? Well, I don't, so I won't be setting this up. My time zone, Europe and London. And the NTP server, and that's quite important because if you don't have an NTP server, you, for example, stop your VM, the time may get stopped as well, which then causes you issues with certificates, encryption, etc. And yeah, just make sure that you do set up an NTP server. The one that I'm usually using for me is the, let me find it, is the uk.pool.ntp.org, but please feel free to use whatever it is that you're using. You can of course use multiple NTP servers and you're really encouraged to do so. So done, it's fine. Okay, so first boot setup completed. We can now disconnect this drive and just wait for the system to start up again. Okay, so that's finished now. If we go to our web browser of choice and type in this address, we are then presented with the onboarding page. So it asks us for some onboarding configuration. The place to generate this is your IE hub. So you go to the IAM instances, you create a new IAM instance, IAM14 for example, save this, and then you will be able to download the onboarding file. Now what's important is this onboarding file is only valid for 1 hour. So if you generate this, then leave it for longer than an hour and provide it here on the onboarding web page, it's not going to work. So yeah, just make sure that once you generate it, you will have time to onboard it. If you don't, then I guess no harm because you can just download it again. Okay, so select this one. Then you need to set up an admin account for your management system. And I would encourage you to leave this ticked. in the Industrial Edge Management, you have Industrial Edge Management OS and the app, and they could have different admin users. This just adds another layer of complexity. So I would just, create users for both with same credentials. So just leave this ticked. You hit next. Then you need to provide the details regarding your organization so that it generates you a certificate. Hit activate. And then wait a moment and it should onboard. Okay, so that's finished now. Let's try to log in with the user details we have just provided. As you can see, it now takes us through some system configuration. There's not much you need to do here. You can just verify that everything is fine, everything here is ticked, that's good. Then it will present you the information page. So if you went here and you noticed, hey, one of these networks is the same as maybe my factory network, then you might want to adapt them. If that's not the case, I would say don't touch it. Okay, so we create the cluster. Now this process takes some time. Not super long, but don't be surprised if it takes 20 minutes, or if you have maybe slow connection, maybe it takes even longer. Okay, so that seems to have finished fine. Let's reload the page. And as you can see, there are still some applications installing, but the cluster created fine, so that's the most important thing. If we go, sorry, not here. Yeah, it's still installing. Basically, you need to wait for it to finish. Once this is finished, you will have some applications here. One of these applications will be the IAM app. Okay, so that's all happy now. Let's just check one thing. If we go to more info here, all the pods are running, so that's all good. So now what we can do, we can go to catalog and install some extra apps. If you are going to be using S7 connector for connecting to Siemens PLCs or OPC UA, you will need to get yourself the configurator. So we can install this now, and we also need to install what's there by default, device catalog, state servers, that's fine. We will also need the data bus configurator to set up the internal broker. So these will install in a moment. If you go to Edge Management, this is what's going to open the Industrial Edge Management app. So this is really the place where you are doing all the configuration, onboarding new devices, installing new applications, etc. And again, if you go here, you will see that you have no applications, you have no devices. So how would you get new applications? You go back to your hub, to the library, and then here via the library, you can select the applications you'd like to install. So maybe I want to install the Flow Creator on my Industrial Edge Management. So I hit copy, and after a moment, you will see here there will be a new notification saying that a new application is being to install. Then this application will then end up here in the catalog. And in terms of the devices and onboarding of the devices, I guess that's a whole different story for another video.